Welcome back to the Holistic House podcast. Today we're going to be discussing energy, fatigue, and anything related to that topic. Is there anything you would like to add on to start today?
No, Carter, thank you so much. No, it's great. No, I'm very excited to do a podcast surrounding around energy. The reason why is I think fatigue nowadays is a lot more complex, and I get tired of people coming into me and saying, I'm just old, right? That's why I'm tired. Not true. You can have energy at any age in your life. So this is a very favorite topic of mine and close to my heart.
Okay, since you can have energy at any age, what would you categorize as fatigue?
So fatigue is different to most people. For me, I have a lot of energy naturally as a person, but we've also got to put out there that some people with natural energy, it might just be adrenaline they're running on. But fatigue is anything where you have a beautiful night's sleep and you wake up in the morning and you're still tired. You go through the day and you dip in your energy after lunchtime or in the afternoon. So you're getting dips within energy where you just feel absolutely tired, or some people can say, I just feel tired all the time. I have no energy or motivation to do anything. So there's different degrees of fatigue, and there's a lot more fatigue nowadays. Even things like chronic fatigue is very common.
Okay, why is fatigue more common nowadays?
Well, I would say it's because our modern day bodies are not designed to deal with the amount of stress, toxic load from the environment, EMF, screens, constant stimulation as what it was, say, 20 or 30 years ago, right? So these bodies haven't had time to adapt to this overstimulation that we're getting from every angle. So I believe this is one of the big reasons why there's a lot more fatigue and chronic fatigue going on.
Okay, interesting. Just so we don't get scattered.
That's right.
Let's set up some structure. I'm going to write down what you say so I can follow along. Okay. But what would you say are the 5 most common reasons for heavy fatigue that you see in the clinic?
Okay, so to throw out there, there's mitochondrial energy deficiency. I'd also say thyroid problems are another big one. Adrenal issues is another big one. Nutrient deficiencies of things like vitamin D, iron, iodine is another big issue. Blood sugar swings can also cause a lot of common fatigue. Toxicity is another one, and stress can be a big driver as well, which would link to the adrenals and thyroid issues.
Okay.
Yeah. So there is probably more. There's probably about 8 that I would kind of name, but we'll keep it to 5 of the main ones that people suffer from.
Okay, perfect. To get started then, mitochondrial energy deficiency. What is the mitochondria? What is the mitochondria to start off with?
Okay, so the mitochondria are amazing. They're in every cell in the human body. So they're like tiny organelles or power plants that exist inside every cell. And their job is to act like a power plant and make energy, which is known as ATP or adenosine triphosphate. So every process in the human body, from detoxification to even thinking, relies on our mitochondria. And they're amazing.
Why do you see that people have a less efficient ATP production?
Well, this will be really interesting for a lot of people because your mitochondria is actually inherited from your mother's line, not your father, right? So the efficiency of the mitochondria relies on that matriarchal line. But on top of that, as we've talked about before, epigenetics play a big role. So the mitochondria is easily damaged from things like inflammation, chronic stress, lack of sleep, certain nutrient deficiencies, heavy metals, toxins. So you can see there's a lot of things that can actually damage the mitochondria and affect its ability to make energy, right? And there's certain nutrients you need to make ATP.
What nutrients are there?
So some of my favies. So we're looking at things like coenzyme Q10, super PQQ, NAD or NMM, your B vitamin cofactors like your activated B2, magnesium is very important. Carnitine is another one. So all of these nutrients have to be available from good diet, but also amazing absorption to be carried to the cell to actually make energy and ATP.
Okay. Is exercise something?
Oh, sorry. I always forget, but exercise is one of the most important things
Okay.
because you can't oxygenate and increase the respiration within the mitochondria without adequate exercise.
Okay.
Right?
Interesting.
Yep.
Say that someone does have less than efficient ATP production, what would you suggest that they do first? Get a test?
100%. So if I want to find out the cause of a person's energy, if they come in for a consult, I do a lot of testing. So everyone knows I love iridology. I can look at the body through the eyes. I can do dark field or live blood, look at the blood quality. I do mineral testing to see if there's any deficiencies in magnesium, phosphates, or any cofactors that produce energy. So I can do a lot of on-site testing as well. But luckily, we're in a world now where we have access to some of the best pathology testing. Through your doctor, if you want to get some testing, you would have to denote what you want to test, right? What we do is I really love things like looking at carnitine, looking at coenzyme Q10 levels, and even things like oats testing. And looking at, with the oats testing, you are looking at the cofactors to producing ATP within the body. So you can see if there's a deficiency. If you think there is a problem with the mitochondria, then we need to look at drivers that might be affecting it. So you look at things like GPL tox testing, heavy metal testing, mycotoxin testing, seeing if mold's affecting it. And you want to take away the drivers of why you're not producing energy in the cell in the first place.
Okay.
So there's some incredible testing out there.
Before you get testing, how can someone tell if their mitochondria is not functioning properly? What symptoms would they be having?
Okay, so often with the mitochondria, you'll feel just dead fatigue,
Yep.
right? But it can, as I said, the mitochondria is everywhere in the body, including the brain. So there might be energy deficiency in the brain, also foggy brain, poor memory, poor focus, concentration, no energy in the body. Oftentimes when we look at things and we class fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue, there'll also be muscle energy deficiency because the mitochondria is not working in the muscles, then you're not going to get energy in your muscles either, right? So there can be real signs like this. So it's not just that horrible fatigue that you get and you've tried everything and nothing's working. Often it's coming down to the mitochondria.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm someone who is fatigued all the time, has no energy. Then I'm going to go get some testing. It was the oats test, was it?
That's a good test. That's
Okay.
one beautiful start.
Then I'm going to go to a naturopath so they can decipher it and then move on from there.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes. But if you go to a great naturopath that already has the testing on site, they'll be able to give you the direction of the right type of test you should do.
Okay.
Right. So, yeah, you could go out and get an oats test and then take it to a naturopath, or you could go to an amazing naturopath with a lot of experience who does a lot of testing on site, and they can then work out where it's coming from. So a good example is if I did some testing on site, I could work out, okay, they've got a malabsorption issue, or I could see they've got a problem with selenium and iodine. Okay, their thyroid is underactive. Let's get some more testing from here, right? So the job of a very good naturopathic doctor or a naturopath is to be an amazing detective, to seek where the problem is straight away and then direct them to better testing.
Perfect. I know you just mentioned the thyroid then.
Yeah.
How is the thyroid and fatigue connected?
So the thyroid is our energy center. So it's an amazing little butterfly gland that sits up about here, and its job, it controls temperature, heat regulation, our energy production. So if the thyroid is not working properly, then we cannot make energy. Unfortunately, and I have mentioned this over and over, that a lot of blood testing is not very accurate with the thyroid because the blood only carries 15% of thyroid hormones. So often you'll get signs to the thyroid not working properly, which will be foggy brain. You either feel the heat or feel the cold, temperature dysregulation, incredible fatigue. In women, you might get hair loss. So there's a whole heap of symptoms that relate to the thyroid. And then you get a blood test and it says you're okay, right? Which is very common. But sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's very underactive. When you look at thyroid, don't just look at TSH levels. Look at the entire thyroid function. Look at T3, your T4, your thyroid antibodies, and then also look at reverse T3, right? Because if your reverse T3 is high and everything else is normal, it's blocking the action of your thyroid hormones and you will have no energy.
What kind of fatigue would people be feeling if their thyroid is out of whack?
Yes. So same sort of thing. You'll be feeling absolute fatigue if it's underactive. So if your thyroid, there's two things. It can be overactive or underactive. Overactive is when it's too much hormone. And what will happen there, you get the bulging eyes, you get very skinny. So it's kind of the opposite, right? But an underactive thyroid, which is a lot more common because we have a lot more heavy metals in the environment, stress, poor sleep, nutrient deficiencies, it'll cause extreme fatigue, but we might start to gain weight is another thing often, but this can not happen with some people, but often you'll gain weight. Like I said, you'll have temperature problems. You'll get a very foggy kind of brain. You might start losing your hair. It will also affect your bowels and you might get constipated.
Okay. What are the biggest drivers you see towards an underactive thyroid?
So the biggest drivers towards an underactive thyroid will be things like deficiencies of iodine, selenium, tyrosine, right? The reason why a lot of those are more deficient, and let's just add up here, you can't make active thyroid hormones without iodine, right? And doctors in the medical world has put the fear of God into people about iodine. Oh, it's toxic. Be careful with it. It's dangerous. Well, yes, if you go ridiculously high amounts, there could be some toxicity, but it takes a lot of iodine to create a toxicity, right? So, and then people are afraid, oh, I shouldn't take it. I'm too scared of it. It is one of the most important minerals in the human body and one of the most common deficiencies that I see in practice. The reason why is if we look back in the 60s and 70s, they used to put iodine into bread, and food. And so no one had deficiencies. Women didn't get fibrocystic breasts, anything like that. As soon as they removed it from the diet, we started to get huge deficiencies. What are the highest sources of iodine? Seaweed, crustaceans. But the problem with a lot of crustaceans now, they're high in mercury and they block iodine absorption, right? The other reason we're all getting iodine deficiencies is we're all on the phones and the computers, right? And so all these EMF frequencies, iodine protects against radiation.
Does that deplete? So your phone depletes iodine levels?
That's right. Basically what it does is it puts off EMF frequencies, and one of iodine's job is to guard against radiation, right? So then it gets used up more and we start to get deficiencies. The other thing is tap water, full of bromines, and all these chemicals, fluoride and everything, it blocks iodine, right? So we've got that going on. We've got these going on. We've got not enough intake in the diet. It's no wonder babies are being born with iodine deficiencies.
Okay. So would you say low iodine is probably the most common driver towards an underactive thyroid?
Yes, I would definitely say that.
Would you tell them to get something like mineral testing done, like an oligo
That's
scan?
right. There's two ways you can test it. You can do what we do. We do a German mineral testing via cytofluorimetry, and it's done on site. Very accurate because it's showing you what's in the tissues. The other thing I love, if you don't know, go to your doctor and ask him to organize a urine iodine test. That's another very accurate one. Third thing you can do a home test.
Yeah.
So you can get some potassium iodide, put it on your skin. If it sucks in really quickly, you're deficient in iodine. It should stay on the skin for 4 hours.
Interesting.
Right? So it's a great little home test you can do as well.
I don't know if we can do this on here, but I was going to say, how much iodine would you suggest someone has?
It's very different. Like I said, ranges can go from as low as 75 UD per day. And if you look at books like The Iodine Crisis, amazing doctor that wrote this book, trying to repair thyroid problems, he was going as high as 50 milligrams a day. I can't recommend that because what I do is I change the dose based on practice, right? So you get a urine iodine test, see how low it is, and then you dose accordingly, right? So it's very different for every human being.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So it's very personalized.
It is personalized, but it can easily be tested. Like we
Okay.
said. The other good thing, if you are testing through your skin with something like potassium iodide, we use potassium iodide here. Um, do you know every time you put it on your skin, you're giving yourself iodine? So, yeah, so you could just do that as well if you're scared of it. Just keep putting it on your skin. I get a lot of parents to do it with children that are deficient and put it on their feet while they're sleeping at nighttime.
Mm.
Yeah, and it will suck it into the body, give them the iodine. You know, the beautiful thing with iodine too, it's the cofactor to helping make dopamine. More energy.
Bang. Okay. I hear like the adrenal, isn't that supposed to give you energy? How is that related to fatigue?
Okay, so those beautiful tiny little almond-shaped glands that sit on top of your kidneys have a lot more power play role to play than most people think, right?
Okay.
So their job is to control how we manage stress,
Mm.
but they also produce 8 glucocorticoids that are involved with anti-inflammatory, electrolyte balance as well. So getting water into our cells, you know, keeping our blood pressure good. So you get blood pressure problems, look at your adrenals, right? So their blood pressure control, stress response, anti-inflammatory, you know, all of these things. But the problem with the adrenal glands nowadays, these 2 little glands, instead of being used in short situations like being chased by a dinosaur, or well, let's go right back, or just a short term, is we're constantly stressing them, right? So we're in this constant fight or flight mode all day, you know, like looking at our screens, screening, you know, EMF frequencies, you know, constant stress. I've got timelines, schedules, financial pressures. Our life is so stimulated now. And so what it's doing is it's overstimulating the adrenal glands. They're having to produce stress hormones too much and they're becoming burnt out or tired, right? Which is interesting because medically, adrenal exhaustion or fatigue is not recognized as a condition.
Why is that?
Because it's the medical world,
But
right?
why do they say that?
Because they have very little testing to diagnose it, basically.
Okay.
It is a real thing, right? Their only testing they have is cortisol and DHEA in the blood, which won't give you a good snapshot. So we would go, if we think a person might have adrenal fatigue and that's the cause, we could tell through our own testing in here. We look at lithium levels. If they're low, the adrenals might be burnt out. But the other thing is to do a saliva cortisol DHEA test. It's called an adrenocortico test. And we do it 4 times during the day. So we do it at 7 a.m., we do it at 12, we do it at 4 p.m., and we do it at 8 p.m. at night. The reason for that is if your adrenals are good, you should be starting very high with cortisol in the morning and petering down in this beautiful graph so you sleep at night. But often what happens with people is they start low and they peter up.
Why do they start low?
Because their adrenals are fatigued and they're not producing enough cortisol. So what happens with all this stress and we're producing adrenaline, we might get a high cortisol production to begin with, and then we get low cortisol production the longer the fatigue goes on, right? So what should happen if your adrenals are healthy, you'll start high with cortisol in the morning and peter down, which means you jump out of bed with energy. You have energy all day. You don't get that big drop in the afternoon. You're just slowly coming down. And then at nighttime, it's really easy to fall asleep.
So nowadays, it's more like if you had it plotted on a graph, it's more up,
Yeah.
up, down,
Yeah.
up, down.
That's right. You'll see that majority of people that they're starting quite low and flat in the morning. Then they have lots of coffee to pick themselves up.
Go on their phone.
Yeah, got on their phone, boom, 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 stimulate it, comes up a bit. And then they have lunch and they drop down because of blood sugar swings, often driven from adrenal exhaustion, you know, and then basically they continue up because the adrenals are burnt out and they can't fall asleep at night, or they want to wake up and have some carbs, you know, and so we're not getting into this beautiful cycle,
Okay.
you know, that we should do. So when that's happening and you do this testing, you want to really treat the adrenal glands.
Okay. What would you suggest for someone right now that they do if they suspect that their adrenals are working less than efficiently?
If you definitely want to know, and I mean, you can tell by your symptoms anyway, you'll basically be waking up very fatigued. You'll need something like caffeine to get your brain going and your body going. And you're not going to be having great sleeps at night, and you'll probably get blood sugar drops in the afternoon. skin will get dry. So there's all these symptoms towards adrenal fatigue. If you want to know, just order, it's a saliva adrenocortico test, right? And you can have a look at your graph of DHEA and cortisol during the daytime. We also do this with hormone testing. So there's a great test called an endomap test, and that includes the cortisol levels, melatonin, your DHEA as well. So you can do it as a group test, or you can do an adrenocortico test. Of course, you can ask your doctor to do it through blood if you don't want to pay any money, but go and make sure you get it done around 8 a.m., right? And if you want a more accurate picture, you could ask them, look, could I do it more times during the day to look at where my cortisol and DHEA is sitting? So that's what you can do. If you want to correct them, the adrenals, if you're not sure and you're suspecting it, look at adaptogens for the adrenal glands. So we all know what adaptogens are. They're so popular now, which I love. But basically, they're herbs or mushrooms in nature that help your body adapt to stress and change, right? So we're looking at things like your holy basil, your rhodiola, which is incredible, Siberian ginseng, withania or ashwagandha. So these are adaptogenic plants. And then also your mushrooms, like your cordyceps, your reishi, they make your body adapt to stress and change. So if you start taking them, instead of stimulating you or slowing you down, they make the adrenals step up to the stress and they nourish them.
Okay. How is the nervous system and the adrenals connected?
But the adrenals are part of the endocrine system, which is, as we know, the HPA axis, hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenals. And on that same line will be your thyroid, your pancreas, and ovaries or testicles in males. That's the endocrine system. The nervous system, as we know, is a network of hundreds of thousands of nerves that run through the body that connect to your myelin sheaths, but it connects the gut and the brain and the vagus nerve through the entire body, right? But the adrenals, even though they're endocrine, are part of the nervous system, right? Because what do? They help us cope with stress, So when we're stressed, the nervous system gets activated. The adrenals secrete adrenaline to try to fight and cope, and then cortisol is secreted afterwards. So they're an interconnected system together. So if the nervous system becomes burnt out, often the adrenals are burnt out.
Okay. So would you suggest someone to focus on their nervous system?
Yes.
To then help their adrenals?
Yeah. So what you tend to do for the nervous system will actually benefit your adrenal glands.
Okay.
So what I mean by that is, what would you do to nourish your nervous system? You would be starting to do really good quality exercise. You would look at some form of meditation to help the vagus nerve, deep breathing. A lot of these breathing exercises nowadays are incredible for the vagus nerve. We're nourishing it with B vitamins, with things like zinc, magnesium, and all of those things actually benefit the adrenal glands. Good sleep. Oftentimes people get everything right, but I'll say, look, your adrenals are still burnt out. Because they're not getting into deep sleep, right? And what a lot of people don't realize is the majority of your healing of every system in the human body occurs while you're sleeping, right? It's activated during the day. And then at nighttime, when we go to sleep, it's our bodies going into that rest and repair phase, right? So if you're not resting deeply, your adrenals won't get repaired.
Okay, I feel like we missed a big thing here.
Yes.
With fatigue.
Yes.
Sleep.
Yeah.
Sleep. I feel like that might be number one, to be honest.
Yeah.
I feel like the whole world is not getting
enough
high
sleep.
Quality sleep.
No.
Not even enough sleep, but high quality sleep.
Yeah, I agree. I would say 90% of people that come in here have a sleeping problem, right? Like, let's add up. It could also be due to, you've also got to work out why a person isn't sleeping properly. Are they getting too much blue light stimulation at nighttime? Are they not in a great sleep routine, around bright lights, screens, too much screen time? Are they drinking too much caffeine? Is there imbalances in hormones? Are they going through perimenopause, or menopause, and that's affecting their neurotransmitter production? Or simply, are there nutrient deficiencies, which is very common we have gut problems, we might not be eating the right food or absorbing the right nutrients, and then we don't make GABA or serotonin and we can't get into that beautiful deep sleep.
Okay.
So sleep is another whole ball game. We could actually do a whole podcast on sleep.
Yeah.
I love it, but you're right. If you're not getting good quality sleep, even the fact if you go to bed after midnight, the hours slept before midnight are twice as nourishing as the hours after midnight, right? So if a person goes, oh, look, I'm getting 8 hours, I go from 12 to 8 a.m., that's not great, right? You need to get to bed before, if you can, around 9 or 10 is good. I'm saying everybody is different, but generally they're saying the most nourishing hours are 10 to 2 a.m., right? So if you're already into that good deep sleep around that time, then you're winning the ball game with your body, Adrenals are happy, nervous system is happy, you wake with energy. I mean, I had the best sleep ever last night, right? The night before, not so much. It was a full moon. I had a lot on my plate with all the Black Friday sales, And so I was thinking too much. I was up on my computer doing programs for my clients really late, and incredible how it affected my sleep. Right. I didn't get my normal nourishing things. So normally I love to take, magnesium, some taurine. I have a Tulsi and chamomile tea at nighttime. I have a beautiful little sleep routine. I didn't do it that night, and my sleep the next day wasn't great. And you know what? My energy and my mental focus was terrible, right? Like they say, one poor night of sleep will affect your mitochondria the next day by 28 to 30%.
And that's the production of ATP?
That's it, of ATP.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, in your brain and in your body. So you imagine if you're a poor sleeper and you do that every night and you're not getting deep sleep, what's your percentage of your mitochondrial function? It's probably down to like 10% of producing ATP. So what will your body do then? It'll go, let's rely on the adrenal glands. Let's get some caffeine here. I need some pickup. And so you're living on this false energy all the time, and eventually you're going to hit a bigger crash.
Interesting. Would you suggest creatine?
I love creatine. And I love that everyone's cottoned on to creatine too, which is great. Yes, originally creatine was only taken for males, which was interesting. I've taken creatine for years. I love it. I have it every single morning. But creatine is great. It's a place where creatine is an amino acid that helps us store more muscle energy, but it also works in the brain, right? Very good for females too, because it switches on the brain. I think there was a lot of misinformation years ago because people thought that creatine would make big muscles, and so women never had it, right? But it's not necessarily for that. It stops muscle fatigue, and it definitely helps build healthy muscles, but it doesn't build them like a bodybuilder. And it's great for your brain, the memory, incredible.
Yeah, I actually wrote something down on creatine earlier.
Yes.
So it actually has a key reaction,
yes.
An instant ATP recharge.
Oh, so good.
There's an enzyme called creatine kinase.
Kinase, yep, great.
That does the magic.
Yes.
Phosphocreatine plus ADP.
Yes.
To creatine plus ATP. So this basically recharges your ATP instantly.
Yes.
So if you have a bad night's sleep, you get zero sleep. If you get 20 or 30 grams of creatine, it reverses that. So your cognitive ability is back to normal operation.
So good.
But I wouldn't recommend getting no sleep every night, what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But of course, life is, not perfect.
No, that's right. But even if you don't get a lack of sleep, you could still take creatine the next day for extra energy.
Oh, yeah, every day.
Because it's like a battery, isn't it? It's filling up your battery all the time. Your brain battery, your muscle battery, and your ATP battery, which is what you're after.
It's insane.
Yeah. So there is some great things that you could just do every day.
And it's like the cheapest supplement on a daily basis. God.
And it mixes really well with magnesium in the morning if you're doing a mag in the morning. So I do my magnesium with my B vitamins, my creatine, and my acetyl-L-carnitine to produce a lot of mitochondrial energy in the morning and switch my brain on. So that can be good. I love that we're switched on.
What are some of the biggest nutrient deficiencies you see in clinic that lead to fatigue?
Okay, probably the most common known is iron deficiency. It's it's very well known, and originally back in the day, if someone had fatigue, all they do is look at their iron levels and say, oh, it's an iron deficiency. the reason why iron's so much lower is women are having worse hormones. They're bleeding heavier at different stages through their cycle. So a lot more blood loss, a lot more heavy metals that are blocking iron absorption. And because of chronic stress, a lot of people have problems with digestion now. They've got low hydrochloric acid from other nutrient deficiencies like iodine and zinc, and they won't absorb iron. So you've got poor absorption of this beautiful mineral, and then you've got poor storage of it as well, right? So iron is probably a very common one that we see in practice all the time.
Do you think that because red meat has been so demonized on zero basis,
yes,
there's no causality between the trans fats in red meat to heart disease and the plaque, which is what the medical industry tried to push, and that's been completely debunked.
Yes.
Do you reckon that has led to iron deficiencies?
I do. I think a lot of people are too afraid, or for a long time there, to eat red meat. But luckily, some amazing doctors in the world, researchers that are into integrative medicine, have pushed forward the thing of carnivore diets, and including red meat as a natural part of our diet. I'm a big believer is that we should always eat like our ancestors ate, so like if I come from that origin, I'm an O blood type, so I'm a carnivore by nature, right? It suits me, right? If I, as a carnivore, then start eating like a vegan, I'm going to get unhealthy, but I do think it's been demonized. The beautiful thing with grass-fed organic red meat is that it's very rich in a natural oil called conjugated linoleic acid, or CLA. CLA is incredible. It stops you putting on weight around your tummy. It's great for the cardiovascular system, and it's an anti-cancer agent.
True.
Yeah, and it's found primarily in high amounts in grass-fed organic red meats, right? So, and perfect. The other good thing is if we look at iron, it's heme iron, which is your most absorbable form of iron. In plants, you have non-heme iron, which has 10 times less absorption, right? And I'm not saying if you're a vegan or a vegetarian, people can be a vegetarian very healthy if they look at their nutrient levels. If they're going to go down that path, they need to look at ways, to soak things, because some people do it for ethical reasons too. They just don't want to eat animal. We understand that, but make sure you do it well. Like if you're going to do any kind of legumes, they need to be soaked for 72 hours. You've got to break down the lectins. Otherwise, you'll get no mineral absorption. You need to look at adding things like seaweeds into the diet. Seaweeds are a very good source of minerals, good source of protein and iron, or even phytoplanktons. So looking at those kind of things, if you don't, there will be gaps in nutrient deficiencies.
So what would you suggest someone do to increase their iron absorption?
To improve, if you think your problem is with the absorption of iron, always look firstly at stomach acid, number one, because the stomach is where we absorb every mineral, magnesium, iron, zinc, everything is absorbed in the stomach. To absorb it well, you need very good, we call it stomach acid, but it's 3 chemicals, so pepsin, glutamic acid, so you need all of them to be bioavailable to be able to absorb iron well. If you think, you can do a little test with apple cider vinegar. like I love home testing. Everything's coming back to all this home kind of stuff now, which is great. But often if you take some apple cider vinegar off the spoon and it doesn't burn you, you're low in stomach acid, right? So that's one just simple little test. You can also use apple cider vinegar from the mother to boost the stomach acid up. That's another little tip. You'd have to do it before every meal. It's a food-based way to do it, right? But that's how you can absorb iron.
Yeah, there's different types of, I wouldn't say iron. What would you say that, like, when they test it?
Yes.
Would you say it's different types of iron? I'm talking about like ferritin.
Oh, yes.
And like the way iron is carried.
Yeah. So ferritin is storage. You've got your TIBC, you've got your saturation, and then you've got your iron. So there's 4 different kind of areas. So iron is just what you're eating.
Yeah.
Right, your absorption. Ferritin is your piggy bank, right? How much iron do you have to draw on, which is super important. And then you've got your TIBC, which is transferring it. And then you've got your saturation, which is telling you about the size of it within your red blood cells.
Okay.
right?
So can someone have like high iron, but they're still fatigued?
Yes, this is common. So you can have very high iron, which is often caused from hematomacrosis, which is an iron overload gene, and that will create a lot of fatigue because it's very inflammatory in nature, right? Or your ferritin could be very high, and it can be a sign of other things. That could be a sign of inflammation, kidney disease, liver problems, or even cancer, right? And so they could be getting fatigue from those. So, yes, you can have high iron levels and still get fatigue because iron's more than just iron alone. Is it saturating those red blood cells, creating beautiful big red blood cells, or are they tiny like microcytes and not able to carry properly? So you have to look at all 4 levels. Then you have to look at things like B12 as well, right? So B12 is very important because it helps with the carrying, helps makes the red blood cells big. So iron, B12, and folate make all your red and white blood cells, right? So, and they help with absorption. So you need B12 to be in balance also.
What would you suggest someone do if their iron is not, transporting properly
Properly, yeah.
or creating bigger red blood cells?
Okay, so bigger ones
Yeah.
are called macrocytes and they are B12 deficiency, right? Microcytes are pure iron deficiency. They're different. The other one are elliptocytes. They look elliptoid. They are also B12 deficiency. So we need to look at, okay, are they big? Are they losing their shape? We are probably not absorbing B12, right, which is affecting the iron. So you look at that as well. There's a DNA test you can do for B12 absorption. And the thing with B12 and even iron in that, you need to have a good balance of Lactobacillus to bifidus species. So the gut microbiome definitely relies on that as well. So if you are not carrying well, definitely look at your B12 is a number one, and see if you've got enough or whether you're using it properly. Another really common thing is that when people come to me, they go, my B12 is really high in the blood. They're telling me not to take any. Often B12 high in the blood can be a sign that you're not converting or utilizing it properly.
Okay.
Right. So when you get B12 tested, you're also looking at MMA, which is your active form of B12. Right. Are you converting it properly for usage? So often they'll go, my B12's high, but I'm tired. Like I'm still tired or my memory is crap. So you have to have a look and go, well, what's your MMA levels like? Are you actually converting it? Often this will be high and that will be low. So you've got poor conversion going on.
Interesting. I want to talk, actually, there's still more nutrient deficiencies before.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't there? Okay, so that was iron.
Yeah.
What are some other big ones that you see?
Magnesium, for sure. Yeah, magnesium. Magnesium and zinc are 2 other very common ones. Why? They're getting used up with stress. A lot more people have things like pylorrhea now, which is caused from stress. Every neurotransmitter basically is made from magnesium and zinc, right? So if we're under stress, of course, we're going to be burning through a lot more magnesium and zinc levels, right? So why is that important is magnesium is a cofactor in the mitochondria to make mitochondrial energy. It makes every neurotransmitter, including dopamine. So when we have dopamine, we have great motivation and movement within the body. So dopamine deficiency can cause a lot of fatigue as well, right? The way you kind of define that is if you've got a lot of short-term memory loss and you feel a bit ADD-ish, then your dopamine might be deficient, right? And you skip from one thing to the next. So magnesium and zinc is another very common deficiency that we'll see. Another big one is coenzyme Q10, right? Coenzyme Q10 is in our cells. We are born with it. We have a lot of it in our cells and it starts declining as we get older, right? But some people have genes, ubiquinol genes, where they don't have enough anyway, or they've got a deficiency with coenzyme Q10, or they burn out the Q10 through the normal pathways of, eating the wrong food, stress, It oxygenates your mitochondria. You need coenzyme Q10 to oxygenate it. So from the age normally of 30 and onwards, it starts declining, right? That's another very common deficiency. And often you can take ubiquinol, which is coenzyme Q10, and get a lot more energy.
Okay, interesting. So would you suggest that if you're 30 plus? to take coenzyme Q10?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. That or super PQQ, which is of the family. It's probably a bit stronger. But yes, I like to, when I use mitochondria, if I'm thinking the mitochondria, I'll use formulas that have it all in one, right? So I
Wait,
have a lot of,
is coenzyme Q10 related to the mitochondria?
that's right.
How
Yeah.
so?
So it's, as I said, it helps with oxygenation or respiration within the ATP production, right?
Okay.
So it is one of the cofactors that we need. And like we said, we're born with it, but it depletes as we get older, and certain kind of situations will make it deplete faster. If you take it, it's also very good for heart, cardiovascular, cellular energy, oxygenation throughout the entire body as well. But if I am suspecting mitochondrial problems, a lot of what I recommend or give to people will have a lot of the mitochondrial production nutrients in the one formula, which is great. So instead of having to take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 supplements, often you can take one. And I have a few favies that I absolutely love, and I'm making them all the time. Look,
is this the new one?
Yeah, well, it's coming out. I'm really excited about it. I have a new liposomal product coming out for anti-aging, but it is for the mitochondria. So it has every mitochondrial precursor within the one formula in a liposomal form, and it's called Eternacell. So it was designed to work on every longevity and anti-aging factor, including sirtuins, increasing telomere length, getting the mitochondria to work perfectly. So it's very exciting.
Very, very exciting.
I'm working with amazing scientists on this formula. It's taking us months, but we're getting it perfect.
Love that. Do you want to talk about blood sugar swings and diet?
Yeah. So, I mean, another thing of energy deficiency would be when blood sugars drop during the day. So a common sign of that would be you might eat, but then feel very fatigued, a couple of hours after this. So you might get a drop in the afternoon between, say, 2 and 3 in the afternoon. But you could get a drop mid-morning too if you're not having a right breakfast, for some people. The problem with blood sugar swings is it creates toxicity within the blood, right? And it can be a sign of other things like adrenal exhaustion, poor protein breakdown in the stomach. But every time your blood sugar drops, it creates inflammation. And inflammation is one of the biggest drivers towards fatigue.
Okay, why is that?
Inflammation affects every body system within the human body. So a perfect example, gut inflammation. The moment I get gut inflammation, it sends signals up into the brain becomes inflamed, and the body has a lot more to deal with. So if I see inflammation with a person, you'll find any inflammatory molecule, and we have countless numbers of them, will create a sticky substance in the blood, and it will make the blood stick together, right? So the blood becomes thicker, it becomes more acidic, and it becomes lower in its ability to carry oxygen, right? So as soon as we've got inflammation and it becomes chronic, you have a poor ability to carry hemoglobin or oxygen through the body, which will naturally create fatigue. So that's one of the reasons. Inflammation makes your liver have to work harder.
Okay. How would you lessen the amount of blood sugar swings you were having?
One of the best ways to do it is to look at things like, number one, are you having enough protein and fat with each meal? That's the most important way. So if you are having a good amount of protein, I mean, let's throw out there, what am I, 55 kilos, right? Like, so if I'm 55 kilos, just to function every day, I have to do 1 gram per kilo of body weight. But if I'm exercising, I'm using my dopamine all day, I'm busy, I've got a lot going on mentally, I would need 2 grams per kilo of body weight, right? So that's 110 grams of protein per day. Am I getting enough protein and fat with each meal to stabilize my blood sugar levels? So that's an important thing to look at as well. So we're looking at protein and fat with each meal. The other thing is not having too much caffeine in the morning. Yes, it's okay to have a coffee or a caffeine drink, but not overdoing it with the caffeine, because it will affect the adrenals, and the adrenals affect the pancreas, creating blood sugar issues. If you want to look at nutrients to help blood sugar, look at things like berberine, which we all love now, very popular. Chromium, chromium, amazing, very popular. Cinnamon, another great thing. Saline cinnamon, excellent for blood sugar. So there's some incredible things within nature that can help stabilize blood sugar levels, and in doing so, stabilize your inflammation and your energy production.
Okay. Is there certain types of food that you would suggest to eat more of, and certain types you would suggest to reel back on?
Are we talking blood sugar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And fatigue, energy in general.
Oh, of course. So always reel back on any processed artificial foods that are high additives, all of those really bad processed kind of foods, because it makes our organs have to work harder, and they basically have no nutrients. So they're dead foods. So reel back on those kind of foods, reel back on excess sugar as well, artificial sugar. I mean, things like raw honey and these types of things are fine, monk fruit, but having too much sugar in the diet will create blood sugar swings, will create inflammation and excess fatigue. So I would be definitely reeling back on those types of foods.
Okay.
Increasing your anything fresh from nature, trying to have more organic produce if possible, because as soon as you're having all these chemically sprayed foods, what happens? You know, your kidneys and liver have to work harder in detoxification. They spend all their time detoxifying and no time producing energy, right? If you feel you're quite toxic, have a look at then some things like intermittent fasting, you know, or doing a bit of fasting. I know I work a lot in the oncology field, and I have my clients doing, 2-day water fasting. Not that I'm recommending it, it's done on a basis. And I do that because I want to get a stage of autophagy, and I want to clear up all the dead, damaged cells. Their detox organs are working beautifully. And so what does your body do? It goes, let's make ATP. Let's make mitochondrial energy, and it puts all of its effort into that rather than digesting, detoxing, and dealing with inflammation.
Okay, does that increase ATP link over to when you're also not fasting?
Sorry, does it increase?
Like, say you fast, you
Yeah.
have autophagy, you increase your ATP production.
That's right.
And the efficiency of it.
Yes.
Does that then leak over to when you're not fasting?
Yes, it does.
Because you're not going to be fasting all the time, obviously.
And you shouldn't. No, but 100%. So what it does is it builds up the quality of the mitochondria, the function of the mitochondria, and it has a memory, right? So it keeps the memory of that going, right? As long as when you're leading out of a fast, you don't go, okay, I'm going to have hot chips, burgers. I'm drinking alcohol now, and I'm doing all this bad stuff. And then you just put yourself back to square one. If you incorporate it as part of your lifestyle, like I would say, 5 days a week I intermittent fast, and I love a day of full water fasting as well. But it will carry over and make my cells and my mitochondria more youthful, better in their production to be able to produce energy as well, right? So, yes, it carries over long term.
Okay, interesting.
Yes.
Can we talk about, we'll talk about women's hormones. I feel like
yes,
it makes more sense.
Yes.
But how does hormones and fatigue and certain hormones affect fatigue?
Okay, so hormones have a very big impact on energy production. We often, let's look at a woman, and we'll look at men too, because we love them too. They're great. So with women, progesterone is often called our happy hormone or our energy hormone, right? So if we start depleting with progesterone, we'll start getting fatigue. So it does control the ability also to make energy, because every hormone makes a neurotransmitter, right? The other side of that is we, as females, we need testosterone. Without testosterone, even though we don't need as much as men, we can't get a libido. We can't get that drive that we have. So you'll find with women with low testosterone, they don't have a natural motivation or drive. If we get too much estrogen or the wrong form of estrogen, once again, your detox organs have to deal with it. The gut's not as efficient, and it's spending all its time doing that and no time producing energy. With males, testosterone. You look at men and they don't have enough testosterone. And they'll go and get artificial testosterone, but wouldn't it be smarter to get your body to produce its own testosterone, right? That's the smart option. the thing with testosterone in males is testosterone is integrally linked to energy production, right? So without it, a male won't have that drive. They don't have energy. They can't build healthy muscle. There's so much involved with that particular hormone in regards to affecting every system in the human body, right? So if a male has deficiencies of zinc, they have deficiencies of lipoic acid, of iodine, they won't make enough testosterone, right? So nutrients are involved with that as well. So yes, you need hormones to produce that, but we've got to remember excess hormones that may be coming from chemicals, heavy metals in the environment, pesticides that the body is mimicking is not a real hormone, and it makes the detox organs have to deal with more inflammation, less energy production.
Just goes around.
Yeah, they're all connected.
Yeah, interesting. So lessen the phytoestrogens you're kind of getting in your diet.
Yeah. Sorry.
Would you say lessen the amount of phytoestrogens you're getting in your diet?
From the environment?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
is that what phytoestrogens are? Or is that from plant-based foods?
Plant-based foods.
Okay, I'm thinking of the stuff that you get from heavy metals and that.
Xenoestrogens.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
So anything in the environment, we call them, so generally heavy metals, they're called metalloestrogens. Anything environmental is xenoestrogens. They're fake hormones. So the body doesn't recognize the difference between these fake ones and an actual hormone, right? Which is bad because we get excess hormones, they attach to receptor sites, and they can drive a lot of problems in males, weight gain, even prostate, testicular cancer in females, endocrine cancers, excess weight gain, and so much more, right? If you did want to talk about phytoestrogens, they are good, okay?
Yeah.
And everyone's afraid of them.
Yeah.
Right. They're afraid because the doctors have made people scared of soy, right? And said, oh, my God, it's an estrogen. It's going to drive breast cancer. Completely wrong. If it's organic and fermented in its natural form, it contains things like diastin and genistein, which are two of the most anti-cancer substances in the entire world.
Yeah, I feel like keywords there.
Yeah.
Organic and fermented.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yes.
like no seed oil stuff.
And not GMO.
Yeah.
This is the other problem because 95% of soy comes from GMO, right? So if you can get the 5% of organic and then it's fermented, I mean, come on, look at the Japanese women, gorgeous, right? And Japanese people, they have so much fermented soy, miso, natto, tempeh, tofu in their diet. And they have the lowest cardiovascular disease, the lowest cancer rates, and they're bloody gorgeous. Their skin's amazing, right? So
no fat.
Fat.
Yeah, BC rates are quite low there.
It's incredible.
Especially compared to Australia.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
America.
Yeah, that's right. And yet we've been scared away from these foods. We've been scared to believe they're bad, they're involved, they drive cancer. It's wrong. If they're in the right form, they actually have the opposite process.
Interesting. Okay. Do you have anything else you would like to add for today?
I just want to add that when we look at fatigue is nowadays multifaceted, right? And like I said, we're in a body now that is not designed to deal with the excess stimulation we have in the modern day world, chronic stress, the screens often, long work hours, all of this kind of stuff. I have to go. So
you have a client right now?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
I have a client, but anyway, I hope you love the podcast and everything about fatigue. Okay, bye.